was not comfortable in my body. I was not comfortable in who I was as a young man. You know, thank you, Dennis. And I know I'm not alone, but back then I felt so alone, you know, in that experience, you know. So I hadn't, you know, it's interesting how much it still touches me, you know, and I received, you know, like it was clear from the, like, I thought I was trying to be secret about it, but everyone knew, right? So they were, you know, like I was the butt of jokes, you know. Hey.
Hello, my name is Clay Boykin, and I am in search of the new compassionate male, and I'm host of this podcast. I believe a new compassionate male is emerging as the new archetype, and these programs are for anyone interested in the topic of men and compassion. Since In Search of the New Compassionate Male does not accept outside advertising, if you like what you hear today and want to support the awakening of the new compassionate male, I invite you to become a patron. Please visit newcompassionatemale.com or my website, clayboykin.com, and click on Patreon. My guest today is Brett Churnin. Brett is located in Sydney, Australia. Brett has been running men's groups for over 15 years, and he's author of the book, Men's Group Field Guide. Brett hosts a Facebook group called Men's Group, where there are over 5,000 men of all ages in conversation on the topic of men and life, and there to support one another. Professionally, he provides business solutions in coaching, training, leadership, team dynamics, and communications. Brett is a man who I believe lives from a place of compassion. Join us now for that conversation.
Hello world, it's me, Dennis, and we are in search of the new compassionate male. I am the producer, and I'm here with the founder, Clay Boykin. Hi, Clay.
Hi, Dennis. How you doing?
Would you introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. Brett Churnin. Brett and I met online 6 years ago, 2014. Brett's been running a men's group since 2005, I believe. So for quite a while, he's a qualified dietitian, a personal trainer, and life coach. And we're going to learn a lot more.
Among many other things.
That's
Brett,
right.
I want to jump in here. Can you take us a little through your evolution as a man from, you know, growing up as a young boy? I'm 72. Clay is in his mid-60s, and you are
48.
So that's a long, and so this was 48 years in Australia?
Yeah, Sydney, Australia.
All right, in Sydney. So can you take us a little through the evolution of Brett Churnin from a boy through that kind of story that would get you to the place where you'd be opening up your heart and your mind in a way? Was that seeded early, or how?
Why don't you start with like a broad question? Like,
make it easy.
Start with an easy question.
Let's go ahead. Give him a softball. Let's go ahead.
It's Mike in the face time.
Yes. All right. I know how this is going to look. All right.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, you can throw it back at us anytime you want.
Summarize 48 years in your first question. Look, this morning I went for I got my kids ready for school. I have 4 beautiful children, and I got them ready for school, and they had like book week, dress ups, and they were all getting dressed up, and I walked them to school, and I had my bike with me, and I rode my bike down to the beach, and I had a swim, and I did some meditation, and then I came home, and now I'm sitting in this beautiful home, and and speaking to you guys. I live a very blessed life, really. Like, I'm very, very fortunate. I really, I'm very fortunate. I had a beautiful upbringing. My parents split, but they both met other people, and I really I'm very fortunate upbringing. No major trauma, no abuse, as a young boy, like really taken care of.
Yeah.
And so, and a beautiful upbringing and lovely role models and, you know, everything that I needed in life, I guess. So, and I think that like how I see my life today is a reflection of, you know, what I've been fortunate to have been given over the, you know, in my younger years. But like any young man, I guess, you know, through school, I went through my own journey, you know, and as a young boy, I was very late to puberty. And I remember I was the coxswain of the rowing team. You know, that's the guy that steers the boat. And I remember I used to get out of the shower. We used to get out of the boat, you know, and then everyone would go into these kind of communal showers. And I remember, you know, like I was literally like the only guy, the only young man who didn't have any hair, you know, and I would have these strategies to try to kind of like avoid getting into the shower or waiting for everybody else to kind of get in. And, you know, and then when I got in, I'd have the towel in a certain position and I'd wait for a certain place at the shower. Oh, it's bullshit, you know, but gosh, I remember, you know, I so remember the pain as a young boy of just feeling like I was just not enough. Like just not enough, you know, and so felt on the outside. Like so felt on the outside, and yet if you looked at me from the outside, you wouldn't have guessed that, you know, good life, good friends, good, you know, like, so internally there was a lot of angst and a lot of feelings of, I can't quite describe it. Maybe you'll come up with the words better than me, but like I really just, like I was not comfortable in my body. I was not comfortable in who I was as a young man, you know, thank you, Dennis. And I know I'm not alone, but back then I felt so alone, you know, in that experience, you know. So I hadn't, you know, it's interesting how much it still touches me, you know, and I received, you know, like it was clear from the, like, I thought I was trying to be secret about it, but everyone knew, right? So they were, you know, like I was the butt of jokes, you know, hey, Baldy was the nickname, right? Interestingly, at my 20 school reunion, probably the biggest perpetrator of that, he was the guy that was sitting right in front of me, the first man. And he was the one that used to really kind of, you know, like give me a hard time back then. And at my 20-year reunion, he came up to me and I knew who he was. And it wasn't like, you know, 20 years later, I'd done my work. I'd had my journey. I'd done my courses and I'd done everything that I needed to do, you know, like, so I was good, you know, and no bitterness with him, you know, but I knew who he was and I knew what he had done. And I knew what he had contributed, how he had contributed to that story, which I was now over, or had transformed, or had shifted, you know. And he came to me and he said, Brett, I've got kids now, and I want you to know that I'm really sorry.
Oh man.
I'm really sorry for what I did. And you know, and if my kids ever treated anyone else like that, or if anyone treated them like that, I would not be okay with it, and I'm really sorry.
Wow.
And and it was a really solid moment for the two of us, you know, like it was a kind of, even though I'd completed it for myself, like that was real completion, you know. That was and you know, and funnily enough, I saw him again at the 30-year, you know, at the next reunion, the 25-year reunion, and I bumped into him just the other day, and he missed the last reunion, and he said, you know, I'm really sorry, I haven't seen him for 10 years, right? And he said, I'm really sorry I missed it, because each time I see you, it's just like, and I said, I know, it's just like that, it's like another level. And I'm just like, I love those kinds of interactions between men, you know, and I'm absolutely clear that who I was at that 20-year reunion created the space for him to come to me and open, because I'd done the work, you know. And he was crying and he was tearful, but it was like, he was like, gosh, I hadn't realized what I was holding on to for these last 20 years. So, gosh, I don't know if I answered your question, Dennis, but thanks for asking.
More than Clay, how many times have you and I talked about these same experiences, the sense of being, we thought we were the one broken person while everyone else had, and then the internal work had to be.
But it's only been in every country that we've had conversations.
Yeah.
So far, 100% of the guys in 100% of the countries have some less than sense. And as you were saying it, I was just zooming back to, you know, my junior high time and feeling the brunt of the jokes. And how damaging that is to any child.
And it's always done out of insecurity.
Oh, but we don't know that.
We don't know that at the time. No. We think it's the opposite.
They got their feet and ass wired together, and I'm less than.
Yeah, and so, Brett, if in the work that you're doing now with men, one of the reasons why when Clay and I were talking about you beforehand was that to try to get some sense of the demography of what is happening. Are you noticing a shift in men across the spectrum that you're working with people, with executives in the corporations that are you noticing a shift in consciousness that's making that people are working on themselves more, that we're beginning to see some shifts? We were talking with Will and Cynthia from the charter, from the
Inter-Equity and Reconciliation,
about this earlier, and want to know from you, what are you seeing from Australia?
No, I mean, I've been a coach now for 20 years, you know. So for me, and I think my journey, my transformation, the work that I've been doing has probably, I could kind of encapsulate it in the last, let's say, 21 years, about 20, the last 21 years. So for me, I've been knee deep in that work, not to a huge extent, but you know, enough for me. So I've been seeing it for 20 years. Are we seeing it more now? Probably. You know, I mean, are men reaching out more now? Definitely. But that's really just a consequence of technology and the ability for us to do that in an easier way. You know, we can connect in a way that we just never could before. I mean, look at that, you know, like 3 men on opposite sides of the planet, you know, you ask me a question and I'm kind of like going back 40 years, you know, 30 years or something like that. And it's intimate and it's real and it's an authentic, you know, exchange, because we now have this. So I'd love to think that people are, you know, reaching out more. I mean, look, I don't know. Look, I reckon the Facebook men's group that I sort of started 8-9 years ago or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
has gone from probably, let's say, 500 men
Mm-hmm.
a year ago to 5,500 men today.
It's incredible.
You know,
Yeah.
What's the demographic of those guys? I mean,
you know what? It's interesting because I didn't actually realize that I could that I could actually
you
go
could
in
find that out.
All right, I'm
find
going to do the analytics here.
I'm really not. It's just not. It's not my strong suit, to be honest. You know, but and I can't claim to be. I'm sure in some way I'm responsible for the growth, but there was something that was organic that was occurring. And COVID just took it to another level, you know, like, I mean, men were out there, they were looking for support, they had the time, and, you know.
Yeah, but Brett, you set the container. I mean, you set it up in a certain way, conscious, and those guys walked into it, stepped into it. You came with the right thing, with the right tone, the right
at
message,
the
right time.
I
mean, to have 5,000, you know, guys in that group. Now they tend, as I'm scanning through, they tend to be a little bit on the younger side. There aren't.
Yeah, we were surprised actually that they were the younger men, you know, like 22 to 35 or something like that.
See, to me, that's
stunning.
Yeah, because I've got a men's circle that I've had for 12 years and it's growing out, but we tend to be second half of lifers, and we tend to be, you know, 50s and on up. And, you know, the big question is not that we're trying to recruit anybody, but how do we connect?
Yeah.
And that's a gap. That's a gap that I don't believe that we are speaking to. And that's what I've admired about your Facebook page. And the guys are, you know, they're asking some pretty tough questions sometimes.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's funny that you sort of, you know, like, yes, I've set the container, and I, like, it's
organic.
It's an organic journey. Like, I really, like, I know how to set the tone in in an 8, you know, with 7 to 10 men.
Yeah.
I can create that container, no problem. You know, that's why I created the men's group field guide. It was designed for that intimate space of the same men meeting every 2 weeks or every week or whatever they do. That, for me, it's not easy to do, but I've had my men's group now for, I don't know, 15, 16 years. So I've learned a lot about what supports men in that container. But how to contain, you know, a group of thousands of men all over the world where I don't know where they're from, what they're on, what they're doing, what they're up to. You know, like, it's a real beast. It's a real
I
beast.
can imagine.
Well, I have to tell you that, you know, I mean, it has its moments. How's that for being? No, but these guys are asking some questions, and there's some, I mean, I feel for these guys.
Sure.
I just do. And you just wonder, well, didn't anybody teach them this, or how did they get? But the wonderful thing is that they are more conscious and have an environment that they can be asking these questions. When I was 20s and 30s,
nowhere.
There wasn't us.
No,
Man,
there wasn't. There wasn't. Well, we get an opportunity then to say to what is going on? What is on the minds in general? What are the kinds of questions and opportunities are there for these the young men, and what Clay and I are doing? What Clay, would you explain the journey of In Search of the New Compassionate Male, just for the audience that might not be listening always to the rest of the podcast, but will listen to Brett Churnin?
Well, you know, I had a life-changing experience in 2007 that set me on my hero's journey, that took me into the dark night of the soul for a couple of years. And then, you know, 2010 came along, and and I started to come out of it. And I mean, I'm really condensing this, but in 2012, we started our men's circle because I didn't trust men. I grew up not trusting men. And I got to this place, well, you know, there's guys going through their recovery program and they're looking for something more spiritual, but they're not going to go to church because they got burned in organized religion, and they can speak just so deeply with their spouse or their partner. But there's something that they can only learn from another man, but they don't trust other men. And so, and I'm speaking about myself, I'm stuck and I'm festering and I'm dying because of that burn there. And I said, well, if I'm having that feeling, there's other guys having the feeling too. I've got to break through this lack of trust. And so I started what I call the Men's Fellowship Network in 2012. So I could find my voice among men. And we've grown organically. Well, fast forward, and it's grown into a network, and we've got guys all around. The past year and a half, well, 2 years now, you know, I've been all over the U.S. I've been in Africa and meeting with men and developing the network. And I really, what I'm seeing is that this burn, especially with all the world things going on right now, that guys are, that I'm talking with, it's like they're trying to hold a basketball underwater. And it's going to come up. And it's either going to come up in a healthy way, or it's going to in an unhealthy way.
Right.
You know, back in the
addiction
day,
and abuse and all the,
yeah, back when I was 53, when all this started, you know, mine was a heart attack. Hello, you know.
Yeah.
And given the opportunity, and it's like what you're doing, and a different kind of demographic, but it's the same thing. It's a safe space for them to open up. And given this safe space, a place without judgment, with someone not trying to fix me or tell me how the cow ate the cabbage, you know, so I can just practice speaking from the heart, connecting head and heart, and then integrating, you know, the divine, you know, the masculine energy, the divine feminine energy, recognizing that we're all made up of both and integrating that. You know, I was talking to the guys, you know, in Kenya, and I said, fellas, you know, you're warriors, and you're going out there with one hand tied behind your back. You got the sword here, but you got to bring this out here from the heart. And then the other hand is a hand of compassion. Now you're going out there as a complete male, a complete warrior, if you will. And they got it. Yeah. These guys are the 18 to 30 range there. But that plays out in that over and over. And so to me, that essence of compassion is the common denominator. You know, it's love in action. And I really do believe that this moving up and this more conversation and talking, that there's I'm calling it the new compassionate male. And he's emerging, I believe, as a new archetype. You know, you got king, warrior, magician, lover, and the Jungian stuff, and that's all absolutely there. And coming up, in addition to kind of, for the moment at least, the common theme amongst all those archetypes is compassion. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying the new compassionate male, not the new compassionate man, because I'm really, the nuances, I'm really talking about the compassionate male energy. So men and women, I mean, I'm not excluding anybody from the conversation. So
how does that resonate with you, Brett?
Yeah, there's a lot that's coming up for me. I was thinking about, you know, because Clay was talking about, like, you know, how the men's group on the Facebook site, you know, has its ups and its downs. And for me, the purpose of that group was always to provide a bridge for men, you know, to start that conversation, to feel like, oh, that's what it's like to be able to share my fears and my challenges as a man, and to ask questions that I've never been able to ask any other man before, and to receive, you know, like a variety of kind of feedback or advice, or, you know, like
Sure.
sometimes it's good and sometimes it's shit, but, you know, like at least I'm getting something back that is in the form of a contribution, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, but for me, the bridge is to get from that to then having that as a regular conversation with men that they truly trust, that keep on coming back every 2 weeks or something, and can check in. And I think, like Clay, in our group, we talk about, it's not our concept, but, and I don't know how you feel about it, but we talk about the idea of ruthless compassion. As in, you know,
I
this
love it.
this idea of, like, yes, we want to be heard and we want to be witnessed, and the power of being witnessed, just to speak in a safe space, is amazing,
Yep.
you know. And yet, we also need to be in action in our lives.
Yes.
We need to be in
Yes.
integrity. We need to
Yes.
be in action. We need to be moving towards where we want to head, and not just talking for talk's sake. Yes, it's beautiful,
Yeah.
but we need to actually be in action. And it's that circle of trusted men that allow us to say, you know, like my man in my men's group will say to me, Brett, fucking, like, this is not okay. You are, this is not who you are. And we will hold you to account on this, because we love you.
That
You
is
know,
compassion.
And
that's
see,
compassion.
and I'm so glad that you said that.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
I'm going to contrast that with the circle that I have, the network that I've got is a contemplative circle. It's a different strata of men at different places in their life that will go there. I was talking to a Baptist minister who had a men's group, and he learned I had a men's group, and we were talking about it, and we sat down, and he was comparing notes, and I said, let me give you a copy of my book. It just came out. And he looked at me without looking at the book and said, what religion are you? You know, he's been teaching his men's Bible study for 30 years, and he had it down. He had it laid out on the table, tabbed in yellow and red. I mean, he knew his stuff. So I knew need to be real careful here. And I said, you know what a crappie fish is? And it's got a really soft lip. And I said, Reverend, you know, you've got the men you've got, and I've got the men I've got. We're both fishers of men. You're bass fishing, and I'm crappie fishing. Oh, he got that. Not that I'm trying to hook anybody, you know,
No.
but the analogy, it worked for the moment. And I just kind of pulled that out, you know, on the spur. But what this is speaking to me is, and this is what I really, really admire about what you just said, there's a point where you got to get off your butt. You got to move into action. Otherwise, we're sitting here contemplating our navel.
Yeah. And that's the misconception about men's groups, is that it's
Thank
just
you.
a bunch of men talking, you know, and for me, it's really like, I keep on coming back to this, that the men's group is the vehicle to shift who we are, you know, out there. That's the real gold of the men's group. You're safe to speak your shit, talk about your fears, talk about your challenges, you know, be open and real and transparent there, and then shift that so that you go out into the world and be the man that you want to be with your, you know, as the husband, the father, the son, whoever it is that you are in the world. You know, it's not just conversation for conversation's sake.
Okay, so if you turn the clock back for me in 2012 when I started my men's circle, had you and I met back then, and you tell me exactly what you were saying, which I absolutely agree with.
Yeah.
It would have scared the shit out of me. I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's what's so nice, and what I love about talking to different men around the world, because every men's group has its nuance and approach based on where the men are, culturally, age-wise,
Mhm.
developmental-wise, whether they're spiritual, whether they're not spiritual. And
Sure.
there's so much to learn. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
Pleasure. Pleasure.
absolutely. And Brett, when
Sorry.
your turn.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, one of the distinctions of the men's groups that I run and the format that I share with people is that, you know, we give each man 10 minutes. And actually, normally we break down that 10 minutes into 5 minutes of sharing with nothing back from the men, just being witnessed.
Yeah.
But then we give 5 minutes of reflection time. Now, the reflection time could be reflecting from the other men, you know, what they heard, you know, what they saw in you, what they noticed, just acknowledging you for what you shared, or it could be feedback, or sometimes it's even advice, you know, but you're receiving from the other men. And I know that's different from, you know, some other men's groups out there where it's like, no, we don't do any of that. We don't do that because we don't want to go into advice. We don't want to go into judgment. We don't, you know, like, and I get that too. But, and the power of just being witnessed, as one of the men said recently, is just so profound.
Right.
But I really think that for me, and for my groups, or the ones, you know, for the men that I speak to, there's real power in also receiving from, and that's what I love about the Facebook group is you receive from the men, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so just the other day was just literally just yesterday, a man kind of, I don't know if you saw it, Clay, but a man said, you know, like, I've got 85 pills of whatever, you know, pill he had said he had. Tell me why I shouldn't take them.
Oh my, I didn't see that.
Yeah. So, you know, we have to pre-approve posts, right? So the team of moderators that I have looked at it and, you know, we're discussing, how do we feel about sharing it, you know? And you know, I reached out to the man personally first, and I thought, you know what, I trust the container in the men's group here, and I'm gonna put this out there because I think he just needs to receive. Like, he's put a call out there. If he really wanted to do it, he would have just done it. So he's put the call out there to receive some love and support, and so I put it out there, and he just got this flood of love and support, and you know, it was just beautiful. And then he ended up deleting that post, and he put up another post saying, guys, I didn't take any pills. I've gone to see my psychiatrist, you know, but I just want to thank you for your support and your love. And for me, that's just gold.
Does it get any better than that? Period.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
I mean, that is the I love it feels like that I'm getting more resilient, Brett. What I could not take as feedback before, I'm getting more resilient. And I'm hearing that in you, that we men are getting less fragile and more resilient to be able to have the kind of feedback and to be able to have that doesn't merely go into back when we were, and of course Clay is a United States Marine, and you know, there's a constant hazing and back and forth, and the kind of work that is. I went to military school, you know, and you know, you have to take it and be, you know, there's that kind of brutal kind of feedback. But then there is the loving, clear feedback and support that we can give one another, that I hear you and the men that you're having building, and that's something that needs to be built.
That's got compassion written all over it. You know, what was it that Jeremy said in Rwanda the other day? You know, compassion was like, you know, he thought, well, it's like petting puppy dogs. Was that, you know, until he grew up and learned, no, it's what you're talking about. No, compassion can be hard hitting.
And action oriented, and to be an action verb, not a passive verb.
Yeah.
I see who you are. I see where the gap is in terms of how you're living your life now, and I love you, and I want you to be where you want to be, and so I'm gonna push you because I love you and because I support you as a brother. That you know, and it's going to come from that place.
You know, You know, we're at episode, I think, 43 since we
Wow.
started in May.
You guys are
And
amazing.
I'm just realizing I don't recall ever hearing, in the context of which you and I and Dennis, what we're all talking about here, I don't think I've heard the word criticism once. Criticism, one of my biggest fears.
Yeah.
You know, what you were talking about growing up when I was,
Yeah.
It's not part of a vocabulary.
Nope.
No.
It's a
And
whole
one of
different.
it just touches me so much to see what you're doing, Brett. This is because it's so healing for my journey to hear my deepest fears and concerns come out of your mouth, and to have that kind of validation so deeply within me is extraordinary, and it gives me and it helps me with my courage, so that I can stand up. And I have things on my plate where I need to say and speak my truth. I need to support my fellow man and woman who are out there. We in the United States are going through we're going through an extraordinary time. We're really testing how badly do we want to have a democracy. We're actually going through that experience. This isn't in theory, and we're having to stand up, and we're having to stand up in our truth and be able to say, how am I going to respond to this as a person of compassion, and still setting limits and guidelines and supporting one another. It's an extraordinary time to do it, and that's why we needed to talk to you.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's look. I think that there is an opportunity right now. You know, there's a real opportunity for us to make a difference and to contribute to each other. And I think, you know, like the more I see the groups grow, the more I recognize it's not just that we need support ourselves as men. It's that actually we have this very strong desire to contribute and make a difference to other men.
Help make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And it's built into the DNA. This is something that this is like, how does evolution happen? Well, it's because it's built in there. There is a built-in imperative for us to be able to do it. It can get subsumed and it can get paved over by the glossy, glitzy but it's there, and we're breaking through. You've seen we've both seen, all three of us have seen a little plant that breaks through a cement that just breaks, and that's there. That's what's happening. We're breaking. There is in my senses, now you have to understand, and Clay knows this so well, that I am a bloomin' optimist. So we always have to take whatever Dennis says and discount it by 20%. But even discounted by 20%,
still positive.
It's still huge that there is something going on. That there's something, because I know that the internet is there, but if the soil were not ready, if the seeds were not there, they would not sprout as it's sprouting, and that you're seeing happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in a time now where we can. I mean, so I think it's amazing. My men's group on Monday night. So I run one every week, but they're every 2 weeks. So every week I'm running one, or one's the one I've been doing for 15, 16 years. I don't run it anymore. We all run it. Like
sure.
The other is an open group, so I tend to facilitate it. But I mean, there was a guy from Austria, and there was a guy from Bali, and there was a guy from the States, and there was guys from all over Australia. And I mean, that ability to do that. And interestingly, I had trialed doing men's groups via Zoom before COVID hit. And I remember saying to my best mate, who helped me write the field guide, and we've been in a men's group, he's been my best mate for 30 years. I said, man, this is the way ahead. We can connect it on, at this level in an extraordinary way, and we can really make a difference. And we can connect with a lot more people. I mean, it was one of the challenges that I always had was we had this, wonderful men's group that we loved, but there was, it was limited to sort of 8 or 9 of us. And I didn't, and every time a man would say, gosh, that sounds great, I'd love to do that, I was like, sorry. So that's when we created that's when and why we created the field guide, because we so loved what we were getting from a men's group. It was like, well, this shouldn't be some sort of secret men's business. This should be like out there for all men to know that they can actually create this kind of container, have this conversation, support each other, be supported, be witnessed, and so that, like we sent out a good couple of thousand of the field guides over the years, and
well, and I'm so glad you did that. And Dennis, what's coming to mind is, we could fill a library full of books that have written by guys that have gone the route here's what I've learned, to pass it on. And it just a gold mine of a legacy to pass on. Your field guide it's out there and it'll live on.
Everyone's sorry.
I was just going to say, we talked with Patty Murray. Did you know we talked? Yeah. Well, and
he is a true. Patty Murray. I like vibrated like a tuning fork for days after spending time with Patty Murray.
Yeah. Well, and his book is out.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, there's some great stuff out there, and there's some great men who want to make a difference to other men.
Yeah.
And I'm very pleased to be amongst.
Isn't it
those.
Fun?
Likewise.
Fun? So how has this journey made you a better father or a different father? Because with having 4 children and having this family unit and working, because they're, the one of the things that Robert Fulghum, that guy that wrote Everything That You Learned, Everything That You Need to Learn, You Learned in Kindergarten. He has a saying, he says, don't worry that your children aren't listening to you. Worry that they're always watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, I'm with 4 kids. There's plenty of people who have got more than 4 kids, but
that's a good.
What I'm clear about is that to manage things well, and we don't always do it, but there's a team happening here, and in order for that team to function effectively, between me and my wife, who's an extraordinary woman, extraordinary.
What's her first name?
Vanessa.
Yeah,
she's just extraordinary. But I'm clear that we are constantly doing the work. We're constantly doing the work together, and I go and do my stuff with my men and my men's group, and I learn stuff from that, and then I bring that back, and then sometimes I learn from her and I bring that back into into my men's group so that I can share that learning, and every single day we're learning from the kids, and and so there's a real sort of cycle that's constantly occurring to allow us to do what we do. And I'd like to think that most of the time we're doing pretty well, and sometimes we don't do well, and we just learn from those mistakes, and we have our challenges like anybody else.
Sure.
But we're a really good team, and I have a beautiful support network around me of good friends and family. But I would count the men in my men's group, the moderators of the Facebook group, as really my tribe. They've got my back, and if I need them, I know that they're there. And it's I always say to men, I really don't know what life would have looked like if I hadn't had my men's group for the last 16 years.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That is wonderful to hear, because because I love how you frame that as tribe, because it feels to me that we as human beings are wired to be tribal.
Sure.
And that when we break apart into these little single family units, that's not the way we were, the way that we're shaped, and that we have to then artificially find ways to create the tribe and have that, because that's what we need. I need you. I need your perspective. I need your feedback. I need your hugs. I need your warmth. I need your bringing me up short, so that when I have an unconscious bias, or I'm acting outside of my integrity, and I need that. I need that to be able to do that, because if not, I'm just going to shut that front door and be behind here and toxify.
Yep. And not only do we need to create it, but also we need training to create it. Like it's actually not, it's not easy, and it's not, I don't know if it's natural. Like the desire to be in that space is I think is quite core and quite natural. But how do we actually move through those tough moments of conflict when a man triggers me in that group, like that's the stuff that we need training on, and we're not always great at it. And I think
Of course not. It's messy.
That container is the training, So,
that's right. That's what we say. And the same thing is we get to practice. It doesn't matter if we get do-overs. I didn't come out right,
I love that with my wife, because I'm an actor and I do that. I will say something awful, and she's gracious enough that she'll let me go, let me do another take on that line. I don't like the way I don't like that line. All right, let me do another take, and I'll walk back a couple of steps. Then I'll come in, I'll say the line with more, and she allows me to have another take. But because we built up
Very
that
gracious
relationship where we've worked together enough to where we're able to do that.
I came in and I said, acting like John Lovitz. She slapped me. I want to ask a question. I don't have personal experience in the area of AA. And there's a reasonable percentage of the fellows in my circle are active in some form of recovery.
Some of the rooms,
right? And like I was saying earlier, they're looking for something additional. And I was just curious, if you have recovery, an element there that's integrated in, or just what do you see there?
I was wondering where you were going with the question, because it's really not something it's not been a major element of what we've done. I can't say that we've had to deal with those sorts of issues. I can't say that the men that in my men's groups, the smaller ones, that we've had, major issues, but I know that it's a recurring conversation on the Facebook group, because there's, when there's 5,000
is there a
men
large,
in there, so.
I mean, is the recovery programs there in Sydney, is that pretty prevalent?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of access to those sorts of support networks.
Uh-huh.
But I think like men's groups, there's probably a lot of stigma around it. And look, just being able to put up your hand and say, you know what, I don't have it handled. I don't have it handled. I'm not okay. I don't know how to do this on my own. Like whether they go to AA or they go to a men's group or they go to a therapist or they go to, a psychologist or a counselor, that step is a big step.
Sure.
And I think that I'd like to think that the Facebook group that, you know, provides one avenue for that, maybe a little bit easier for some people to kind of step into that than step into an AA
Right.
group.
Sure.
I know that new men that come to our open groups almost always say, gosh, like I really, when they're checking in, they're nervous.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to experience here. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know what this is going to be like. It takes courage
Oh,
to
yes.
step into that space.
You know, I agree with that. And I've also seen in our circle, every Monday night, we've got 18 to 25 guys in a circle.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've had 30 and 35. And it's interesting to be able to create a container where, you know, people aren't trying to, you know, jump in, can't wait till you finish what you're saying so I can get onto my point, you know, where it all works. But time and time again, I've had a new person come into the circle. Now, a lot of times somebody will be in there for weeks and not say anything. And I decided early on I wasn't going to interrupt that because they're processing.
Mm.
I mean, in that circle, there's over 1,000 life years of experience sitting right there.
Yep.
They're picking up something consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously. But there's other guys who come in and it's the first time they're in a safe container like that.
Mm.
And after about 10 or 15 minutes, they start talking. And you can see it, and everybody knows it. And we're basically like this, holding while this is coming out for the first time in his life, because he's never had a safe space with other men to do that. And those moments are just golden.
Totally. I can think of several times where it's just been like, you know, literally tears running from the guy. Like, I've never had this ability to be in this space, especially being around other men. That space of being around other men and feeling safe to share and be seen by other men in that kind of space. And it's every time you see it, it's just like, oh gosh, you know, like, and when they get it, it's like, oh wow, that is transformational.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it makes it so worth it when we're doing what we're doing, knowing. I mean, Brett, did you feel or do you feel that this has become a calling for you, that this has become to what is yours to do as being part of this process, and that alignment with what is your purpose?
Yeah, that's been clear for many years now, that this was very clearly my purpose, you know, and I'm very fortunate to have a job that I love, that provides for me very well, that I really enjoy. And so everything that I do in the men's group field is my gift, you know, like I don't need it to survive. I don't need work. I don't need to find clients from it, you know, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with making money from men's work. I think that, you know, it's an important thing to do, actually. But for me, the time and energy that I spend is really just an expression of my purpose. And, you know, I'm very committed to making a difference. And I happen to care very deeply about men being whole and complete and content and, you know, good men in the world, you know. So and different men do it in lots of different ways. This is just my way of being able to do it.
And this is because if peace were, we could, statistically, we can see that we are in the most peaceful time we've ever been, or since we've been keeping records. I mean, there have been fewer percentage of physical killings of the kinds of the things. So the peace is breaking out. It may not make it on the news, and it may not make it there, but that's what we're doing. We're spreading the word that Brett Brett Churnin is doing what he's doing, and what you're doing in Australia, with all the work that Clay is doing, the work that I am doing, and we're saying that there is more going on that is bringing light than we're giving, than is making it onto the front page of the newspapers. So by God, let's fucking talk about it. You know, let's spread the word. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
There you go.
Totally. Yeah.
Thank you for this time, Brett. Thank you for spending this beautiful, precious day with us. And thank you, Clay, for inviting me along in search of the new compassionate male. We will see you next time.